Zimbabwe hopes to agree a new staff monitored program with the International Monetary Fund by April next year, with an IMF team due to visit later this month for initial talks. Speaking at the IMF and World Bank annual meetings holding in Marrakesh, Morocco, Mthuli Ncube said Zimbabwe intends to have signed off on a staff monitor program before the end of the spring meetings in April. Ncube also said that some white farmers whose lands were seized 2 decades ago in one of the most divisive policies of the Robert Mugabe era had agreed compensation terms with the government. The compensation is central to a government arrears clearance strategy developed in collaboration with the African Development Bank. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Dr. Prosper Chitambara. He's in Harare, the Zimbabwean capital, and he's a development economist. Thank you very much for your time. What are staff monitored programs, in this context, and how can they help Zimbabwe's economy? How feasible is the deadline that has been set?
Yeah, so basically it's just an agreement that the government enters into with the International Monetary Fund as part of technical support provision by the fund, Zimbabwe being a member of the fund, and with clearly defined reforms that the government must then implement. So I think it must be viewed from the broader context of the government's re-engagement efforts with the international community.
Well, Dr. Chitambara, Zimbabwe's finance minister said he's making progress in resolving more than the 2 decades long impasse with white farmers who had their farms forcibly seized. Those happened in the Mugabe days. Can you kindly bring us up to speed with this very interesting development?
Yeah, so the government entered into an agreement, what they call the Global Compensation Framework, where government has agreed to compensate the former white farmers to the tune of $3.5 billion. Initially, they were planning to carry out this compensation over 20 years, but now we hear that government intends to fully pay the former white farmers in the next in 10 years, actually. So I think it's very critical in terms of bringing finality to the land reform program. It has been an outstanding issue for a very long time. And also as part of re-engagement, it's an obligation that government must now pay up.
All right, the neighboring country, Zambia, is set to sign a memorandum of understanding on its debt restructuring with official creditors very soon. Do you see Zimbabwe towing that line, taking that route?
So already the government has established what they call a high-level structured dialogue platform, which essentially brings together the government, the creditors, development partners, and civil society organizations. So it's basically seized with the arrears clearance. So they've actually agreed on a number of reforms, macroeconomic reforms, governance reforms, and other institutional reforms that government must actually implement in order to unlock the full potential of the economy. Because without the economy growing sustainably, it will be difficult to sustainably address the issue of debt. We are currently actually in debt distress. Our total debt stock is estimated at about 17.5 billion US dollars, almost about 18 billion US dollars, and about 80% of that actually arrears. So the government must actually implement reforms that enable or allow the economy to be able to grow sustainably. Once the economy is growing sustainably, means we are generating enough revenues to be able to sustainably pay back these arrears.
Quite interesting. Dr. Prosper Chitambara, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed with the developments.
Thanks for having me.